When one begins to look at the experience of life in the space of eternity, one has to release itself from its past experience of temporality. An experience in which the beginning and end of a form was the beginning and end of a life. And we have covered that the last 2 times. When one accepts being one within the one, one then has to accept all that the one accepts. One has to come to a space of love with all that the one has come to love. One has to come to a space of peace with all of the peace that the one has come to. It's in that context that you begin to see eternity not as a prison cell, not as an endless struggle, not as an endless journey, but I see it as a great comfort. For I know that as I am within the I am, I look forward to an infinite experience full of infinite experiences of which I am simply practicing the practice within. I know that with every experience I come to peace with, I am in a greater space of harmony with the I am. With every experience I come to a greater level of love with, I'm in a greater space with the I am. Until the point in which, relatively speaking, I am experiencing life, relatively speaking, as the I am. What you want to remember about this is the I am is infinitely evolving into a greater space of infinite perfection. It is not imperfect becoming perfect. It is infinitely perfect becoming more infinitely perfect. If this space is in this space is in this space. For unless you are in a space of ignorance, which is possible, that still denies you access to this truth, you are in this space. To the degree you are conscious in a space of unconditional love, acceptance, compassion, and peace, is the degree at which you realize and recognize you are in this space within that which is the I am. Which means early on, when our level of unconscious was this, relatively speaking, into this point where our level of this is, at this point, we'll just put negligible, but let's just, draw it like this, and then it's, relatively speaking into that. Even in this space, even in this space of complete darkness, complete ignorance, complete lack of consciousness, relatively speaking, you are in that space. Because this space knows nothing else but what we'll call the unconditionals. Which means this space, whether you're here or here, in complete, relatively speaking, complete enlightenment, or relatively speaking, complete unconsciousness, has no difference. Sees you, relatively speaking, metaphorically speaking, and loves you all the same. Accepts you all the same. So, let me be completely truthful and make sure there's no misconceptions or unnecessary ignorance. This path of unconsciousness to consciousness is not to receive a greater love from God. It is not to receive more from God, or to be blessed more by God, or to get more from God. God is giving everything that God gives here. This path is to make you conscious of all that God is doing for everything in the field of life, all the time, forever, unconditionally, eternally. When you're in this space of unconsciousness, where there's a lot of ignorance, it's a lot of self. Believing in God is all about you. It's all about your peace, your well-being, your health, your longevity, your money, your children, your possessions. As you become more conscious, the amount of self in you, and should I say self-interest in you, decreases, and you realize the motivating factors are gone. And so what is the motivating factor as you move up? Love. Appreciation. Gratitude. For what? That which you are. Not that which you thought you wanted to be, hoped you would be, needed to be, tried to be, dreamed to be, but that which you are. And that which you are, forever. People that live life temporally, in terms of, what I mean by temporally is live life in terms of time, okay? They are in a hurry to get these needs met. Because they equilibrate these needs with having a better life. Insatiation. They want to be insatiated. They want to be full. They want to have what they want. They want to feel complete because of their accomplishments. They're still claiming them as their own. When in reality, if it wasn't for this field of I am, this wouldn't even exist. I've had many, many interesting conversations with God. Many, many interesting conversations. And I know they were with the source because you know. The truth brings huge amounts of humility when it's really the truth. And I'll never forget when God said to me, he asked me a question. He said, how many tests did you pass to become what you believe is a doctor? And I said, geez, God, thousands? He said, none. I passed them through you. You were working to fail them. I passed them through you. How many patients have you treated? Tens of thousands? None. You've watched me teach you about me through treating them. And then he asked me to give everything back that I ever thought was mine. And that was easy at that time because I'm not really big on possessions. But when he asked me to give back what I thought in that moment were my children, and a very strong, purposeful voice said, make no mistake, they are my children. I'm asking you, but I'm really telling you. They're mine, they've been mine, and they'll be mine forever. You know it's the source when you're talked to like that. It's very loving, but it's also incredibly, incredibly strong. It's the voice, and I use this metaphorically because I'm not giving it in my framework here. I don't mean to give it any reference, but it's the voice of the Father. It's the voice. It has that steady, you just know that it's telling you the truth. Why do I bring that up? Because when you realize that all of this is only because of this, you begin living your life for that. I've lived my life to maintain and achieve a level of balance with the field of life, God's creation, for quite some time now. All of you that have known me have seen the changes that have happened. I am not the same person I was 15 years ago here and before you knew me here. And therefore, when you hear words on my CDs that have happened that I made 5 years ago, I make no apologies for those words. I make no apologies for the fact that what I said then isn't what I say now. I make no apologies for any of it. It was perfect. It was just what it was supposed to be. I have not transgressed those things. I have not betrayed those things. Those were said in a space of complete truth. And they were said by that, because everybody is in different spaces of consciousness, and the words that we say in different spaces of consciousness benefit all those who are in that space of transition. So if you hear inconsistencies with what I say now compared to what I said then, God, I would hope so. But I have not begun to teach these in this way until I believe I have reached this point. They are there to learn from. They are there to be teachers in many ways, but in terms of what I believe to be the unchanging truths of life, I have taught those to you now. What I have taught to you now, I do not believe in my deepest sense of truth will ever change. I am teaching you the eternal teachings because I am teaching you how to live eternally. The other teachings were there to help you cope, help you learn, help you grow, help you achieve certain levels of enlightenment. They are a wonderful tool until you're ready to practice these teachings, and they're still helpful. I still gain wonderful insight from them. I hear something different every time. But they didn't take this form because they were in this space. These are here. So, living eternally. You cannot live eternally and have emotions. I shouldn't say that. That's not true. You cannot live at peace eternally and have emotions. Because if you have emotional fields left in you, eventually something here will bother something that's not quite in here. Because remember, this is the field that looks back at all of this with an unconditionality, right? So if whatever's here will be bothered by something here. So people say to me, how do you feel about child abuse? And I say, I don't. They say, well, do you think it's right or wrong? I say, it's neither. Well, how can you think child abuse isn't wrong? Because it is. Don't you care? No. I don't indulge in judgments and battles with natural symptoms of unconsciousness and ignorance. It is an unproductive use of my life. Do I do it? No. Does that mean anything? To those who see me for what I am, it does. For those who see me as an example, it does. To those who don't, it doesn't. So what difference does it make how I feel about it? Those who are ready to see will see, and those who wish to be blind will be blind. It does not matter if God itself is standing right in front of them. It is the nature of unconsciousness. Don't get emotional about it. It has always been there. It has always caused the same things. It will always cause the same things. It will never change. It is the nature of the eternity of life. We are not here to solve some type of problem. We are here to come to peace with an infinite number of circumstances, and over time come to peace with enough of them that we no longer experience life here, but as this. Where we no longer see something as a hardship or as a disability. Everything is a necessary experience within an infinite field. Nothing has permanence. When you live temporally, you see things in an exaggerated, distorted way. For example, a child has a handicap, is in a wheelchair, has cerebral palsy or some other, affliction. When you see that life as that child in a temporal span, it has an incredibly strong emotional pull, does it not? You're grateful that it's not you. You're compassionate for what they go through. These are good. You're thankful if you're a parent that it doesn't happen to be your child, and you can't imagine what the parent's going through. Compassion again. So it stimulates a lot of good, godly responses. Where it turns into a less than godly space is when you look at that child trapped in that body, unable to do the things they want to do. It's that. It's that. Eventually, we have all been through it or will go through it. All I would say is be in a space of unconditional love, acceptance, and peace. It's always what any situation needs the most. It can never not be. So when you don't look at life with a sense of temporal framework, it's easier. I'll give you another example. My body was processing some discomfort, and I had some weird, like, left neck and shoulder and arm pain, and whatever. I mean, it's not suffering for me. It was just an experience, just having an experience. And woke me up like 5-6 times a night, and this is all over the last 5 to 6 weeks. Anybody really notice it? Anyone really notice it in me at all? Of course not. It didn't really. I mean, I listened to it. I gained information and wisdom from it. The air conditioning on. Let's get a little warm. But in a space of timelessness, which I exist in, it's going to go. The I am that I am is eternal. The experience of that symptom or that discomfort or whatever you want to call it, okay, is less than infinite. So I just practice. I just continue to do the things that I teach all of you. I just practice my practice. The people that do yoga with me in the morning, I did my yoga classes, I did my unwind, I got my massages, I took my nutrition. I just did everything I do monotonously, beautifully, day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. And it's gone. One of the situations that let it leave as easily and quickly as possible, relatively speaking, was I didn't care how long it stayed around. I'm focused on what the practice that keeps me here. Because everything else eventually is going to what? Fall away. And only the I am within the I am will be left. That is why I told you the story about my conversation with God, because that was God stripping away from me, what I thought was me, my old concept or construct of me, everything that I was attached to. And so literally, when you are in this space of life with the I am, when you're in the infinite space of life with the I am, what can you be attached to? Nothing. Except, in one form or another, that which is eternal, which is the practice. It is the constant, isn't it? It becomes the constant. Because the practice is based on unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, peace, compassion. Which, isn't that funny? It's the same as that. What's the true frequency of God based on? Unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, peace, compassion. Perfect, evolving towards a higher sense of perfection. Perfect the way it is. Perfect the way it'll be. Perfect the way it was. So the practice is all that I take with me. It's all that you can take with you if you want to stay here eternally, and this is what I was talking about last time, in any form. If it is within the path of life that I am to be in some other form that I don't know of yet, maybe I will be that person learning something from having cerebral palsy and being in a wheelchair next time around. I don't know. But I know that even if that is the destiny of my form, how will that not serve me? What would serve me more than that? Nothing. If I am formless, if I'm in the ethers, which is still a form, but without a form is still a form, what would serve me better than that? Nothing. Because this practice does nothing more than affirm that, which affirms that. Or the practice just affirms that, which affirms that. The practice either affirms I am within the I am, or it affirms the I am in which I am within. It brings you and life into a complete space of unity. And remember, when I use these terms now out of this context, all these terms are unconditional. Unconditional unity. Which means a brother kills a sister, you must love them both. You do not have a tool in your toolbox that allows you anything else. It is not within the practice. Because whatever they need to learn from those experiences, they will learn, and it's up to this to decide the form that will take. It is not up to you to decide the form, any more than it was up to you to decide the form that you're in. Form is a transient tool of teaching used by the field of life as part of the experience. Living eternally. Living eternally. If you are not living from the inside, I am inside the I am out, you are living from the outside in. If you are living from the outside in, then, which most people are in a space of unconsciousness, that's how it works. They're living from the nervous system in, all right? They are expecting, and this is just is what it is. If they're living from the outside in, they're expecting what they think as God to make it all okay for them to be okay. And they're in this dialogue with their deity. It's kind of a neat catchphrase, huh? Dialogue with their deity. And they're in this dialogue with their deity, wondering where are you? Why aren't you helping me? Why did you let that happen? It doesn't work. It's never worked. There's no consistency in that model. The consistency that's coming through me as I'm sharing it with you, this is where it starts. And you're okay because you're within the I am. You can't not be with it. It can't not be there. But that takes complete surrender to the experiences you're going to have within there, being in a space of, it's all good. But at least, pragmatically, everybody, this has a logarithmic curve that goes like this of suffering. You kind of start here. At least at some point you're going this way. The more you accept, the more you experience, relatively speaking, over an infinite space of time, even a relative space of time, even a lifetime, if you don't believe we do anything but go to the dirt. These practices work because overall, by the time you get to the end of a lifetime, we're thinking old people, like unconscious people thinking, you're suffering less. It works. Everybody wins. And as you're getting this way, as you're going down the curve, as you're having more experiences coming to peace, more experiences coming more big, there'll be less and less and less and less and less and less experiences, relatively speaking, that will cause you suffering or pain. Not only is it good for you, it's good for everybody around. This, it never gets any better. You're gambling with your life. You're gambling with your peace. You're gambling with your freaking eternity. You're gambling. You're guessing. You're hoping. And it relies way, way too much. Way too much. And to me, this has been misused in this setup. It relies way too much on faith in an inappropriate environment. You rely on faith in this environment, it leads to intuition. It's all based on everything's okay. So you might be a little uncertain about it, so you got to have faith that it's really okay. But in the long term, you're believing it in the context that it's all good. And eventually that faith will become an intuitive knowing, and then it'll just be done. This one relies on faith in a completely erratic, random pattern going around it. That's all based on whose interpretation? Yours and yours alone. This one, you're relying on the goodness of God's divine nature to help you see things and learn things. This one, you're relying on a developing central nervous system that's maybe 10 million years old versus the age of the freaking universe. I'm sorry. This is insane. Which is why most people who look at it this way are insane. Crazy. But this was one step away from, what they tell us was, we were completely dark. We had no idea what was going on. And we couldn't understand what was going on, so we started making up stuff. Well, there's God, and when the sun does this, and when we do that, and we, tell each other stories, and trying to come to grips with it all. And, my point is, we'd have been better off just going this way and being absolutely terrified for 10 million years until we finally just gave up and went, okay, we're all here. Okay, people living, people dying, okay. Because all this stuff, this dialogue, deity dialogue, that's where all the good and evil and all that stuff was born out of. Unexplained events. Gotta be a bad guy. Gotta be a reason it didn't go the way we wanted it to. No, it was the right way for it to go. It was your opinion of it that was skewed. And maybe 10 lifetimes from now you'll know, or maybe even 10 minutes from now you'll know. But in the minute you didn't know, and because you didn't know, it was wrong. And if it was wrong, then you got to go back to that again and say, hey God, what's wrong here? I make a joke. People say, you talk to God and you get answers. I talk to God, I don't hear anything. I said, well, I talk to God and I listen. You talk to God and you don't hear anything because it's not what you want to hear. You want God to tell you what you want to hear. I want God to tell me the truth. There's a big difference. You hear a lot more when you want to know the truth. But you don't really want to hear the truth unless you're completely unattached. Because a lot of times the truth will cause detachment. Living life eternally. You cannot live life eternally in a space of consistency and order when you are in an external dialogue with God, when it's all going on around you and you're depending on your nervous system to give you interpretation. Which is why when we started this, I started with this model. For those of you who were here the first class, do you remember that? It's all what? Everything that's happening is what? Okay. It's okay. Good. Okay. It's all okay. You can't start with any other place, or you're starting with judgment. And if you're starting with judgment, you're starting with this. And when you start with this, you're never going to get anywhere else but this. I mean, eventually, I'll just micro it. Eventually, will you get here doing this? Yeah, but only because this completely breaks down, it doesn't work, and you have to go on to do something else. But I find out that this pattern, heavily contributes to stagnancy in this early part of this field. Where if we can teach the truth, which is this, then relatively speaking, we can move through the unconsciousness relatively quickly. Relatively, it's not like it's like timing, but relatively speaking, the shorter time we're in here, the less suffering we experience, relatively speaking. And the better it is for everybody. It's in, and when you look at this, almost done for that. I'll go. When you look at this, what I'm teaching is very simple. It's just this. In the highest good. Highest good. It doesn't mean anything else it doesn't mean any other religion or any other prophetic teachings are not good. I just believe that what I'm showing you, the basis of what I'm showing you, that has been said in maybe different ways, in different contexts, I'm sure it has been, nothing's new. I'm just saying the foundation of the practice is in the highest good. And isn't that the basis? Isn't that what I told you is the basis of being intuitive? Remember the first day? I told you I'd wrap this all back up. And you can't be a pure intuitive if you're not completely committed within the I am to what's in the highest good. And I'll tell you why, because God won't give you the consciousness. You won't arrive at the higher space of consciousness unless you're completely committed to being an intuitive in the space of the highest good. You'll get information, you'll know things. But to be open to knowing all that God wants you to know, you have to be committed to in the highest good. And that just isn't, remember, this is all encased in the framework of unconditional. Unconditionally what's in the highest good. Not until it seems to affect you or your family in what you think is a negative way. Unconditionally in the highest good. Come what may. This is what the practice does. So you practice it. And my point is we're going to be living life eternally in one form or another, okay? Whether you want to believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me, it's the truth. What else are we here to practice? I mean, I'm not even telling all of you that, like, not even telling y'all, throw your fishing nets and, I'm just saying, at least include the practice of living life in a space of unconditional love, acceptance, peace, compassion, being open to life. At least practice these teachings in your life. Just practice them. Because this is a practice. We're all here practicing. Practicing. And we're perfect practicing, and we'll be in a higher space of perfection 1,000,000 lifetimes from now practicing. But trust me, we will be practicing. It's never over. How do you know that? Well, here's how I know it. Because I know the nature of consciousness. And the nature of consciousness is to do what? Expand. And expand infinitely. So, now you realize why there's no choice? Practice. Practice is not a choice. Practice is what you do when you completely surrender to choicelessness and you accept unconditional love and accept unconditional peace and accept unconditional acceptance of all others in the field working towards the surrender into choicelessness. But once you know this and this and this, there is no choice. There is the practice. That's it. And whatever your life has in it, in its relative field, in a space of balance with consciousness, then it has. And whatever it doesn't, it doesn't. I want, in terms of what's left of Keith, I want nothing in my life that is not there as a direct part of the divine balance that I have with life itself. That is God's will. That is the definition of God's will. A part of life as a result of divine balance with all things. That is God's will. That is the definition in my consciousness of God's will. Once you submit to that and into a space of choicelessness as a result of that, you've got nothing to do with practice.